I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Hello, everyone. This is our 200th episode. That's just hard to even believe. We are recording from our RV in Shasta Lake, California. And I've got Richard here. He's going to turn the tables on me. We're going to flip the script, and he is interviewing me today for the 200th episode. As most of you know, Richard, my husband, is the original producer of the show and editor. And we've evolved since, but he's also my life partner and teammate and all of the things, and road trip mate too. So quick update from the road. I mean, just here we are, week 4, I think. We've been a month now living in the RV with our 1-year-old Lincoln, and we've been to 7 states, lots and lots of stops. What do you think so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing actually. Every single stop has bar one, although we did flip the switch on that too. It was
We just left, didn't we?
Yeah. But I think we it was pretty rad. But every site so far has had something different, and the country is just so beautiful. Seriously.
Isn't it though? Especially from Australia. Like I love how you appreciate our terrain being so diverse. Not that it's not in Australia, but it is extremely different from like hour to hour here sometimes.
For sure. Especially, today, for example, we left Trinidad, which was, 60 and foggy, but beautiful on the coast with the redwoods. And then we're out, Shasta Lake, which has its own version of beauty, but it's like 97 degrees. And so, yeah, it's interesting. The country is very, very diverse, but feel very grateful to be doing our trek.
Yes. So we'll continue to provide updates and share on social and everything. We recorded an episode a couple back about why this all started, how we got on this trip, sold our house, and went mobile. We've been working from the road, learning how to parent
learning how to parent
baby toddler together without any other childcare, which I know a lot of you can relate. So especially right now. All right, so let's hop into it. When we come back, I'll be in the hot seat, Why Not Now style. We've never done this. I've never been interviewed before, so I've got these fun little butterflies. Not pterodactyls, but butterflies. And Richard's going to turn the tables.
Yeah, I wanted to add too that it is kind of ironic that the first and the 200th episode have been recorded in some sort of recreational vehicle.
This is so true.
Which I'm sure you'll admit says something about your personality.
Oh my gosh, yes. The first one was recorded on the boat when we lived on the boat. Oh, in that studio, we had pillows surrounding me and like this tiny mic. And here we've upgraded our equipment a bit, but we're in a pretty small RV. So yes,
anyway,
we like to move.
I wanted to add that. So
we've been on land too. I mean, stationary as well. So, all right. So we'll be right back. How we spend our days is how we spend our lives. For me, being able to design my own day is a non-negotiable. As many of you know, I'm a bit of a time management nerd. So when I find something that allows me to be more efficient and more effective, I want to share it with everyone. So here's the scoop. I have a new tool in my productivity tool belt, and I'm a bit obsessed. It's Monday.com. My team and I have never felt more organized, and I have a new sense of perceived control. My to-do list is no longer the boss of me. I feel more in control because every project, initiative, date, and task is captured and organized in one place. And my team is in the loop and involved every step of the way. With Monday.com, it's like I have a brand new operating system. There's no long list, and everything has its own home, its own deadline, its own team member that's assigned and associated, and it's color coordinated. We all have multifaceted jobs and businesses. There are many components to my business, and each and every one of them has its own compartment. Each division is always one click away. For example, my team and I have a dedicated board for this very podcast. Did you know there are 28 steps involved in getting one podcast to air? It's the same exact process every time. And it's a system. We have the various key steps mapped out as micro tasks. And this allows for my team and I to stay in lockstep every step of the way. With Monday.com, I can zoom out and see the big picture, a roadmap view from 30,000 feet. And a moment later, I can zoom in and focus on a specific micro task within a project, within a division of the company. I could go on and on about the features that Monday.com offers, one of which is I've built my social media content calendar inside of Monday.com. I finally have one that I actually use, that I like, and it's embedded into my overall Google Calendar. Another feature that I love is the Google Doc integration. You know I love a good spreadsheet. I can pull them into Monday.com and edit them right there versus having 97 tabs open on my computer. If how we spend our days is how we spend our lives, then I can't think of anything more important than using the time in our days wisely. Head to Monday.com if you want a free trial. And let me know on social media how it goes for you. Shoot me a DM. We can swap tips and tricks.
Amy Jo, welcome to your show.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
In the true spirit of Why Not Now, can you tell me about a time when you had to ask yourself, why not now? And let's dissect that moment, that day, that hour.
You've listened to a few of these, haven't you?
Several, yes.
A couple hundred. So as I was thinking about this question, because I had a feeling you might ask, honestly, I have shifted focus quite a bit in terms of why not nows. And for so long, for the first almost 4 decades of my life, I'd say, these were all external why not nows. They were things, they were goals, they were things on the outside. And whether it was lifestyle or career or experience, whatever. And those are great. But my biggest why not now is to focus internally and really integrate what I've learned. And that has been the biggest challenge, for me, and not chasing the outside carrots, but being able to just find that within myself. So I've done some really fun, neat things, and I know that's possible and that's great. But what I've found is that the biggest joy and kind of prize is when you have that internal, when you want to feel a certain way and you actually do. And so it's a daily practice, but it's all an inside job for me.
And was that, it sounds like it was something that you've been kind of leading toward, but was there a specific moment that you went, hang on a minute, I need to look inward and start living a life from the inside out?
Yeah. And you know what? I think it was an inflection point, the reason I started this podcast. But I lose sight sometimes. I think I take my eye off the ball every once in a while, and you get kind of shiny object syndrome. And it's like, oh, I want to go chase this goal, whether it's, something on the outside. It could be anything, small goal, big goal. And what I always come back to is you have the power within you to feel any way you want on the inside. And so nothing out there is ever going to do it for me. It's always got to be me. And that's exciting because then you really can create anything you want. Because it's an internal feeling. And so, yeah, I would say too, I don't know who wrote this quote, but it says, as soon as you realize what enough looks like, you become rich. And I think that just rings so true. Like, I look at us living in this tiny little RV. There's not much glamorous about it other than the photos maybe we share every once in a while when we see a cool mountain, which is amazing. And to me, that's actually glamorous.
Right. And your new haircut, I might.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty glam.
But we just don't need much. And the closer we can get to who we really are, I think the more we will create that actually is needed. And so that's what I'm finding. And you know what happens parallel? I think financially there's a parallel there too. We talk about that purpose, passion, skill colliding, in that intersection is where bliss resides. And it sounds so fluffy at times when you hear that, but that's what I've learned is that for me, that's the sweet spot. And
so being from the inside, so let's go the joy, and then the enough isn't knowing when enough is enough. Are they extensions on? Like, did that come instantly when you decided to kind of live from the inside out, or are they extensions from starting to live that way? And if
totally.
so, like, when did you notice those things happening? And like,
I know this is kind of like what's funny is when I ask this question to people, I love a clear-cut answer and a moment in time, because it's why not now, right? And I mean, if you listen back, I think it was the 100th episode. I shared pretty colorfully the truth behind, look under the hood here of my big transition 5 years ago. And it has been a process. And so as much as I am about now, and I do take a lot of action every day, I very much live in the now and make things happen. But I think those big, huge shifts, a lot of times they're a work in progress. And then you have these sparks of like these injections where the velocity just picks up. Like Lincoln being born, boom, definitely leap. That was a leap in this process. But also meditation was a big one. Like really learning to sit still with myself, and the constant desire to hear my own voice a little louder, whether you call it intuition, GPS, compass, whatever. If I can get closer to who I truly am at the core, I want to do that, right? I am always interested in how I can become a little bit more me.
So the decision to try and cut out the external trappings, that one thing has then, over the course of years of doing this, because there is no silver bullet, right? In any of these, like,
and
get
I've
rich
talked
quick,
to
whatever,
hundreds of amazing people and asked them, right? So this isn't just my opinion, but it seems like this is data, right?
Right, absolutely. I mean, in that realm, can you think of one or two guests that have been the most memorable, and kind of why they were the most memorable? And I guess even more so, I'm going to do the like you say this about asking too many questions in one question, and this is what
hard not
I
to
get
do,
so
huh?
frustrated with the White House journalists, because they do this all the time. But so can you? I guess my first question is, can you think of a couple of guests that were the most memorable and why?
Oh, good questions. Yes. So a few come to mind. One of which is a friend of mine who I witnessed go through this huge transformation. His name is Lane Wood, and it's not a household name. We've had those on the show, the Tony Robbins, the Mark Cubans, Jessica Alba's. But Lane, his story of really doing a 180 with his entire life within a year was so captivating to listeners that it's one of our top downloaded episodes. And I think that just goes to show it doesn't always have to be some famous person.
Right. They're always good too. But.
They're great too. But I think with Lane, he started with one thing and it led to the next. And so he went from a physical move from one place to another. Then he went and all of a sudden he really focused on diet and health and lost a bunch of weight and got very healthy. Not that one equals the other, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So it was really focused on feeling good. And then he changed his career. I
remember that.
And then another huge relationship change. And all of a sudden, it just was remarkable. And he talked through, I think so much of this is about momentum, and Why Not Now is a daily practice, right? It's a mindset. I went through it today with getting my hair chopped off, right? I went through the 5 renegade rules of what's the worst thing that's going to happen, and how can I burn my boat and just not give myself an out, so on and so forth. But what happens is you start to look at this as a mentality where it's a domino effect, right? So you tackle one why not now, a tactical, tangible thing, and then all of a sudden there's another one, and it's a lifestyle. It's a way of life. So
it's a holistic change, I think, overall, 360. And for you, the realization that, you are going to have a better life if you start living from the internal versus the external. And then that momentum then feeds other things, as you mentioned, meditation, other little extensions that you add on. And for Lane's example as well, just that one thing led to another. And we're skipping a little bit here, but there's someone that we talked about prior to click and record was, I guess as your husband, I hear and work partner, I hear so many people who are really excited to share their Why Not Nows with you, like not guests, but just listeners, not just listeners, but listeners. And some of them are incredibly impactful. A lot of them are.
Yeah.
What? There is one story that we talked about, and so, would you want to share this with the listeners? As someone that you heard from a listener, they told you their Why Not Now and how impactful that was on her life, and then how we've seen that daily practice for her turn into a flourishing life.
Yeah, that one really caught me off guard, and so this woman, she basically told me one day after the fact that she listened to an episode, and that episode was the catalyst for her asking her husband to get a divorce. And at first I was like, oh my goodness, it just kind of felt,
pretty non-traditional Why Not Now. We hadn't heard that before. Well, I mean, I say non-traditional for us in terms of we hadn't heard that before. Oftentimes
it's a career change, I think, because that's been my lens over the course of time, and then have applied it to life in general. But and at first I was like, oh my goodness, but this was a really good thing for her, a good positive step. And we started talking it through, and then it led to another thing, which was her going into business for herself, which is now thriving. Again, she changed her whole health regime.
Yep.
And just kind of a different person now. So I think that's where, you look at this as a marathon, not a sprint, but start small in terms of how can you get a little bit of momentum in an area. Like we talk about this a lot, right, Richard? Is what's the smallest win we could get the quickest today, in our day, to get some momentum? Because I know for a fact that momentum works.
Right.
It builds, and you need it sometimes to get out of a stagnant place.
Yeah.
And it's amazing where it can take you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to that point, it's not necessarily the easiest thing, right? Some people associate what's the quickest win. It's like, that's the easiest thing you can do today. It's not always the easiest thing that you want to do first. But I mean, it could be quick, and it's a load lifted, and it's worth it, and it gets that momentum started. And I think that Christy Wright, for me, always sticks out. That she said baby steps, right? And what is that one thing you can do today to get you to the next part of your goal.
Absolutely. And it could be a mental win. Like, it doesn't have to be a tangible, huge
Right.
celebratory. Congratulations, you just XYZ'd. But yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And what do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just thought of another guest that really stands out, but we can
No, sure.
close this loop if you want.
I was just going to say, what's the main thing that other listeners can really kind of learn from those two stories that you've shared? I think we've covered it in terms of momentum and taking that, doing the one thing. But is there anything else that you would add to that people can kind of learn and apply to themselves from those two stories?
Yeah, I think learning kind of how to push your own buttons when it comes to taking action, because Why Not Now is all about action, right? Whether it's internal action or external, something you can see. But knowing what motivates yourself and pushing your own buttons. Like,
That's a big one. Yeah,
I
that's
know
huge.
sometimes if I do this, then I'll do that. So I'll make myself go do this, right? Or it's just, and learning how to jazz yourself up and find that momentum. Because a lot of times we're looking on the outside for inspiration. And if you can find it inside, you've got a endless tap, right? That you can tap into at any time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those stories rings true in those stories for sure.
Yeah.
And did you want to share with that other guest that came to
Yeah.
mind? Please do.
Okay, so a little backstory on this one. So this was Billy Corgan.
Who?
And
who's that?
don't even. He's being sarcastic because I didn't know who Billy Corgan was at first. And now, of course, I do. And I did know his music. But anyway, so I got a text from a friend who was working with him. And this was shortly after the Why Not Now podcast started. And he said, hey, would you want to interview Billy Corgan? And I kind of forgot because I didn't know who that was. And then a few days later, I mentioned to Richard, who's a musician too, by the way. Hey, yeah, I had a friend ask if I wanted to interview Billy Corgan, and I just don't even know who that is. And your reaction, you looked at me and I think you were just silent and you just shook your head.
Yeah, I think it was disbelief, but it was also like, no, you've got to have him on the show. Like, call him
He's
back
like,
now.
Wait,
Do it.
did you respond?
Did
I
you,
was
did
like,
you,
no.
Are we doing it?
So those of you don't know, don't feel bad because I clearly didn't. But Billy Corgan was the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, which was a huge band in the 90s.
Yeah, it's still pretty big.
Still a big band. And anyway, you probably have heard a lot of their music if you were alive then. But because some people weren't. I mean, we're getting up there.
I know.
It's crazy, but yeah. Anyway, so that's the quickest way to know, right? Your ages when you start talking about music. But
Right.
so the reason of course we set it up and I'm like, okay. And Richard's like fanboying. Like,
It's my one biggest regret so far of the podcast is like not going down and saying hello.
saying hi to him on video. And
Yeah.
so I did my research and, approached it just like I would. And there was a connection there. And I think it was partially because I wasn't just asking him about music. I actually wanted to talk about life. And I didn't know all the stats and all the albums and everything. I knew a couple of his greatest hits. But he shared something that it was a why not now for him to share, I think. But I didn't know it at the time. And not to get all deep here, but basically when he wrote the song Today, will you sing a little bit of it?
No, I won't. Just Google Smashing Pumpkins today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of you probably are now hearing it in your
I'm
head.
Baritone. I'm not going to even try
Okay,
that.
fine. And plus we'll wake Lincoln up, who's in the back room.
There you go.
And that's, you wake him, you take him. Okay, so he when the day he wrote this song, he was in a major bout of depression. It was this one, like, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
with my
I'm
90s
pretty
music
sure
trivia.
what was. I think Nirvana was just, they'd kind of kicked off and really successful, and Pearl Jam was really big, and he was just kind of questioning everything. They'd had some early success so far, Smashing Pumpkins, but he was kind of
Total
questioning,
self-doubt.
like, yeah. Mhm.
I can't do this again. We're done.
Yep.
Like, just creatively was not. And he was very close to taking his own life.
Yeah.
And he shared this with me. And I just, I'm listening and I'm so moved. And he's sharing. And then I asked him, well, what would you say to someone if they're feeling like they're in that spot right now? And I'll tell you what he said in a moment. But what I didn't know at the time was he had never shared this before with anyone, ever. And because I'm not a fangirl, I figured everybody knew the story behind this song. So we wake up the day, that it airs, and it's on the front page of Rolling Stone, this podcast episode, the player is, because he's never talked about this before. And I was like, oh my goodness, how incredible that he felt comfortable to share that. But what I loved the most was that he was able to talk directly to people who might be in that spot and shared what helped him. Mm-hmm. And what he said he would provide as advice, guidance, just a voice of hope to anyone that's feeling that low is to move. And I remember at first I was like, move. Like I thought of moving houses, or I'm like, that sounds like a lot for and he said, no, move your body. You just get up, whether you're going to walk to the kitchen or you're going to walk outside around the block or just whatever, just move. And it will, that is going to help. And I can definitely relate in terms of having been down before, and then movement has, but for someone to be in that spot and share that too, just, I don't know, it felt, yeah.
I think it's really interesting to me that some of the biggest stories that stick out for you are the ones that are the non-conventional business. It's not, it kind of goes against, but it's not exactly why you started the show. Because it was more to, help people go from idea to action, of course. And so generally that was about a career change because that was what you were going through and kind of that was your journey at the time. And I think it's really interesting that you have latched on to a few stories that are more encompassing of all of life versus like that, or it was just my job I was really bugging out on my job. So I step 1 through 5 and now I have a different job. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to me.
Well, what mirrors that is the whole desire to grow and focus on the inside, meaning like if you can become more of yourself, just a little bit more every day to that true core essence of you, then that will show up on the outside. And for so long, I had it reversed. Right. And I think I'm probably really attracted to learning because these are all inside job stories
I think
that show up on the outside.
It makes a lot of sense that over the course of this is real-time learning for you. So and change, right? So you're taking in all this information from conversations and then applying it subconsciously and consciously to your own, things.
Yeah, and constantly integrating.
This shows the growth. I mean, not to blow smoke, obviously, but I love you anyway.
You wouldn't do that.
But I think it's a really interesting thing to sort of to see, and it'd be I would I think going back to listen to some early episodes and and
oh my gosh, that's so hard to do.
Kind of fun, but
yeah, well, it was an innocent journey, this whole project,
sure it was.
Because I just wanted to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling just completely lost in terms of what was next, and it was a passion project. Right. I was like, can I just ask some really smart people who think innovatively, who seem to have found a pretty decent balance in life, and learn from them, and then just hit record. And it was kind of a dare, this whole thing. And
it was.
And so I'm just grateful to have all this data under my belt from these incredible people. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Are you ready for change? Or maybe you're already in a season of expansion. As we embrace this new decade, are you ready to take action on your own Why Not Now idea? Maybe that means starting the company, launching the podcast, writing the book, or doing more public speaking, injecting your why into what you are doing. At the end of the day, that is exactly what creates connection. And connections convert. My life work is to help guide women through this very stage in their life. I do this through the Renegade Brand Bootcamp. It truly is the career love of my life. The reason I love this program so much is because I'm able to create a mosaic a collection of like-minded, like-hearted, driven women who come together to level up. They learn the renegade mentality directly from me, and I share everything I've learned over the past 20 years in business. It's equal parts education, collaboration, accountability, and community. We are accepting applications for our 2020 program, and you are welcome to go check everything out about the program at renegadebrandbootcamp.com. And as a very first step, just sign up for my 5-day email series. I uncover all of the questions about the bootcamp and help you understand if it's right for you. We've had some incredible women come through the program, and you will hear from them as well. You can check out the curriculum, the structure, the vibe, and everything in between. Many years ago, I went to Mark Cuban and asked him for investment advice. I thought I was going to get some real estate or stock market type of advice. Instead, he said, invest in yourself. Invest in your own growth. Invest in yourself. Bet on yourself. This is the best ROI you will ever find. If you're at that point where you are ready to take action, head to renegadebrandbootcamp.com.
Speaking of learning, what's one lesson you've had to keep learning over and over again?
I feel like there's so many. The first one that pops to mind, which is an intuitive hit, I think, so I'm going to go with it. I find that, we've talked to some really incredible people on this show, and if I'm not intentional, I can get on bandwagons and and not even just with people on the show, but just in general in terms of, oh, they've got it figured out. So if I could just, do what they did in terms of even focus on the inside job, like they must have the perfect formula. Or
so when you say intentional, what do you mean by that?
Meaning I really believe in diversifying the advice you seek and the advice you take, and being conscious about not putting people on pedestals.
Okay.
Because it is so easy to do, especially when you're hearing, one side of the story. Usually you're hearing either the social media, highlight reel, or the glorified,
right,
whatever. So you can easily, not see the whole picture. But just in general, we kind of live in a day and age, especially in the kind of personal development world, where what does that even mean to be an expert in personal development? You know what I mean? It doesn't even seem, it seems kind of counterintuitive. Like, nobody's perfect, and we're all so messy. So if you pick and choose little tips and tricks from certain people, but don't try to just put all that pressure on one person and put them on a pedestal, because they're going to fall, and you put them there. They didn't ask to necessarily be up there. I mean, some may have, and so I guess just keeping that top of mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And so but by doing that, what does that lead you to? So when you put people on pedestals, how do you find the lesson in that? Like, do you get to is it disappointment that you feel in them for some reason, or is it disappointment you feel in yourself for following someone's instead of taking what you needed from them, taking everything they said as?
Yeah.
So,
I think you override your own intuition a lot.
Right.
So, or your own voice, your own judgment. And so it's great to have outside sources or point of reference or mentors or, all of those things, guides, books, whatever. But
your intuition knows her shit.
Your intuition knows her shit. If that's the one takeaway, or his shit.
That's the lesson. Right?
That's it. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty damn simple, but it is not necessarily simple in application. So, yeah, we override our own judgment.
That's when we really
think, again, it's external.
Good. Yeah, another external. Yep, agreed. Really reminds me a lot of Bruce Lee, and in our household, we reflect a lot on Bruce because of my personal history and Amy Jo's history as well with Shannon. But the thing that he said is, if anyone I'm not paraphrasing, I'm not even getting it right, but he would say things about if you're not no one's a master. If you say you're a master, then you've already started to go the other way. Like, you've stopped learning.
You're not a student.
You're not a, like,
yeah.
you have to be. You're always learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and then just take what's useful and reject what's not.
Discard, yeah.
Yeah, and then use and add your own.
And
Again,
add
I'm
your
I'm
own.
not saying it right,
But I think that's exactly like your formula, your secret sauce is you always. And it's not even about forward facing outside stuff, but even adding more things doesn't usually help you get to your core essence.
right?
It's
It's the stripping away that
Exactly.
generally does. Yeah.
I think the noises in our heads just get louder, the outside noises, and we can't hear our own voice sometimes.
Thanks,
when we
YouTube.
keep constantly consuming. Consuming. I need another book. I need to go to that conference. I need to have a mentor. I need to.
Right.
And it's like, hold up. What if what you need is less?
And
those
the doing too.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
You can only consume so much. You have to apply.
Right. So the definitely I feel like I've seen this growth in you as well, in terms of choosing to trust your gut more so. I think this year you've exercised that a lot more, I think, from what I've seen in recent years. I mean, I've been able to, and I'm very lucky enough to have seen you grow, exponentially the last several years. But it feels like 2020, even with everything that's going on, you've exercised that kind of gut intentional following, more so this year.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, because I'd say the journey, there's never really a starting line. I mean, they're always working on it, but I really got intentional about this about 5 years ago, and 4 or 5 years ago. And it takes time to integrate. Like, you can learn all you want, but so if anybody's listening and they're just like, where are my results right now? Little and often, because I know it's been a journey for me, feeling it,
Yeah. Overnight success is very rare.
Yeah.
I think and even overnight success, perceived overnight success, takes years.
Yeah.
So
10 years in the making, right?
Right. So I think that's a key
Totally.
lesson too. I think is that there are no quick fixes. There are no silver bullets.
No.
It's all within you, and so you also have to do the hard work.
Yeah. Action. I think.
Be
and
smart
that's-
about it. But
No, truly. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to wrap their minds around action and internal work because you can't see it. And I used to be so focused on action and external work.
Results,
I'll always
numbers, I
be
wanna
that
see
way,
it.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I'm just very results oriented, but you have to feel, and you're the only one that can feel it. Other people will eventually start noticing for sure, but sometimes it's hard to make it tangible. It sounds so esoteric, like, oh, I've had this huge shift. Like, yeah, but I can't see it yet. Eventually, you usually can. Like, people look different, usually.
yeah, and
Because their energy
and
is
you don't
different.
realize because you've come full. You've made a multiple amount of 5-degree shifts, and you finally realize that you've made those 5-degree shifts at around about 175 or 179. You're like, holy shit, I'm here.
Yeah.
I did it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yep.
And then you're on the right path, and you kind of carry that momentum again. There's that word momentum into that next phase of the the line you want to go down. I wanted to ask you as well, because I know you're very productivity oriented, and of course most recently we've talked a lot about it because of Monday.com. But I think it's important for people to know what your number one productivity tip is. Even if you have a couple, maybe one and your top one and a bonus tip for
Yes.
productivity. I mean, I could probably name a couple from you, but you're very productive. And just a little segue, when I first met Amy Joan, she was running Digital Royalty, and there would be this. She was very efficient with email, and when I say efficient, I'm putting it lightly. This woman could crush a 400 inbox, 400 email inbox in no time at all. And her team would joke that when she'd jump off a plane or she'd land from wherever she was traveling from and to.
This was before Wi-Fi on
This is-
planes.
this is before-
Sometimes they did have it.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
they didn't.
Before, and when Gmail you could work offline.
Yeah.
The eagle has landed because
They
You
get bombarded.
just get pummeled with emails. But yeah. So you're just super productive, I guess, is my point. But anyway, back to your productivity
Well,
tips.
thank you. I don't know if that was the most effective. Well, anyway, productivity tips. It's funny you said email because it actually has to do with email. When I realized that my inbox is not my to-do list, the world looked different. I was like, oh, because it just feels like a constant deficit and you're just running defense all day, every day. If you let that be your guide for what needs to get done, that is one of them. I have to remind myself. Email used to own me, my soul. Oh my gosh. So that was one of them. And I've done a whole episode on how to really manage your email if you want to go back and look. For the longest time, I had an out of office on, and I go in and out of that. But that's one of them. And then the other, I've said this before, but there is a difference between your to-do list and your to-do today list.
Great one. Mm-hmm.
And if you start to look at the long to-do list and whatever you use, for us, we use Monday.com. It captures everything for us, and it really has changed my days. But if you look at the whole project and you just look at every to-do item, you will get overwhelmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just have a list on paper, and personal or professional, and you see everything, it's basically that's the quickest way to feel like you're not accomplishing anything.
Right.
So, and the to-do today list for me, it's got to be pretty brief, right? It's
Right.
the top few things, and
You
I
would-
even
you
like
would
to
do,
put a
like-
sticky note.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have Monday.com, and it is on my phone and also on my computer. And there's never any guessing of what needs to come next, what needs to happen next. But like even in my car, back in the day when we used to have meetings and pre-pandemic, I would put my to-do list even on the dashboard. Like keep your eye on that ball because there's so many flying things that want to get your attention that I will chase after. Like I have 100 ideas an hour. And so I have to stay focused or I'm just a mess.
She does have 100 ideas now, too, by the way, people.
I had a lot of energy to go do them all at the same time.
That is true.
And that ends in nothing getting done.
That is very true. Well, thank you. We've reached the point of the show that I'm bringing back for this episode, which I love so much. And we did start compiling these answers for the PRN a while back, but we kind of got sidetracked. But anyway,
PRN?
yeah, the first question. Pirates on Ninjas.
Oh,
It's rapid fire, people. Rapid fire is back. All right, you ready?
PRN.
P or N.
Oh, or.
It's my
I was going to
accent.
say or is it with an O. Okay.
Pirates or Ninjas, mate. All right, are you ready?
Oh my goodness.
Ready?
Sure, yes.
Okay, here we go. Rapid fire questions. Pirates or Ninjas? Who's tougher and why?
Well, 100% pirate girl here. Like, no doubt about it. And why not answer how you want to answer? It's not about being tougher. It's just they have more fun. They have more fun. And they're just jolly, I think, on boats. And I love boats. And I love being on the water. And so that's as far as I go with my rationale. I know ninjas are smart and all that stuff. But, like, do you want to be smart or do you want to have fun?
Favorite all-time book?
All time? Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, yes.
Viktor Frankl.
Good. So good. Favorite quote?
Abe Lincoln. Most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be.
That's a good one. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would tell her, you are enough and you have nothing to prove.
There's some tears welling up, I see over there.
Yeah, man. I wish I would have learned that one earlier.
Is there an age you would say that, Tears?
Gosh, pretty darn young.
Yeah.
I would say young. Yeah, 9, 10, maybe even younger. But I think the whole something to prove kind of explains back to that outside,
Mm-hmm.
I know that men feel this way too, but I know a lot of women that feel that way.
Right.
You're enough.
Yeah,
You are
for
enough.
sure. I can absolutely put my hand up and say that I felt that. And still,
Yeah.
to this day, like, have many days where I question
And back to that quote, as soon as we learn what enough looks like, we're rich. And it doesn't necessarily mean outside materialistic things or outside goals or money.
Right.
I know, and I have to share one of the most common answers that I've heard after speaking with this very diverse and incredible group of guests over the years. When I ask this question, I frequently hear, I would have told my younger self, don't worry so much. It's all going to work out. And they all, in different ways I hear this, but that's definitely a theme. And they wish they wouldn't have stressed so much about things. And so how cool is it for us to know that? We can kind of take that wisdom and start applying it now. Because I can so relate to that too.
It's such a thread. Yeah, you're so right. It's such a thread with all the guests. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I love learning from other people and hearing so many stories is you start seeing these themes and it's like gold. You're mining for gold,
Well, thank you for your time on your own show.
Thank you for interviewing me.
Of course. I was going to say, I'm not a professional interviewer at all. If there are any questions that anyone has that they would like to hear Amy Jo being asked, then I'd be more than happy to get her in the hot seat again. One last thing, is there anything you want to say to your listeners that, or either this might be their first episode or, it could be the 200th? Like, is there anything you want to say to them?
Heck yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for spending time with me. It's the most valuable resource you have, and I'm honored that I can be in your ears. And it's been, this has been a dream come true that I didn't know I had. So you've made it possible. Literally, it's happened because of you. So thank you. And we're going to keep trucking here. We're going to grow together. And I'm excited for the next 200. So thank you. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?